Welcome to Bodkins Curiosity Shop, where you'll find the unique, the bizarre, and sometimes the haunted. Feel free to look around, peruse the items, and never fear, there's nothing here that bites. Hard anyway. Hello there, and welcome to Bodkins Curiosity Shop, your home for horror, fantasy, and science fiction. You just caught me. I was coming up from our basement laboratory. I was working on our shop clerk, Mordecai. As you may know if you visited the shop before, he is more machine than man. And sometimes we have to recalibrate him, for Mordecai tends to reprogram himself. And when that's the case, who knows the horrors that he may wrought on unsuspecting customers. And therein lies the essence of today's episode of Bodkins Curiosity Shop. So let's pull out the kinetoscope and take a look at the new Netflix film, Atlas. So Atlas is a new film just released on May 24th on Netflix. And it's a movie that, wow, has it got a lot of bad press lately. I heard it was coming out, and first thing I'm like, Jennifer Lopez. I'm not a big fan of Jennifer Lopez. I'm not a big fan of rom-coms, although I will watch a rom-com from time to time, and if my wife wants to watch a rom-com, she is gracious enough to indulge me when I want to watch horror, fantasy, and science fiction. So, I'll be the good husband, and I'll watch a rom-com or two from time to time, and she does well in those types of movies, but she doesn't do a lot of genre anymore. I mean, she did one back in the day with Anaconda. What was that, like one of her first major motion picture roles? And I didn't mind her then, but then the thing she's done since then is just not my cup of tea. And as an actress, I can't say that I dislike Jennifer Lopez, but I can't say that I'm a fan of hers just because the movies she usually in aren't movies that I tend to want to watch. So that had it going against this movie to begin with. Then I saw the trailer and I was like, it looks exactly how I expect this movie to be. And then all the reviews started coming out. As soon as this dropped, you had every movie page talking about this, and a lot of the reviews were not glowing reviews. A lot of the reviews were essentially saying this is a movie that you can have on in the background and, well, you're doing something else. It's that type of movie. And I'm not going to say it's not that type of movie, but I will say I decided, I'm going to sit down and watch this. I actually started watching. I watched like the first 25 minutes of this, and my wife walked into the room and she was like, "Oh, you're watching this without me?" And I was like, "You wanted to watch this?" She's like, "Yeah, I would have watched it with you." So we waited a couple days until we could both sit down and watch the movie together, and she watched it with me. And of course, she's like, "Feel free to run commentary on the first 25 minutes up until where you haven't seen," because she'd already heard me talk about the first 25 minutes or so. But as I'm sitting down and rewatching those first 25 minutes, I reminded myself how bad this movie starts out. And it wasn't until later that I decided, you know what? After it was all said and done, the movie's not as bad as the first 25 minutes. And we'll get into the what fors and the why nots of it all once we get into some spoiler territory. But ultimately, this isn't a great movie. I can't even say it's a good movie. It's an okay movie. It has a lot of things in it that they did right, and they had a lot of things in it that were enjoyable. There were a lot of things in this movie that were bad. Just bad movie making, bad writing. And we'll talk about that. But if you haven't seen Atlas on Netflix, go check it out. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to. And maybe you will as well. But if you haven't watched it, go check out Atlas. Come back, hear my thoughts on it. And if you have watched it, you want to hear what I think, or you don't care one way or the other. Whether you get this spoiled or not is not going to dictate whether you watch this movie or don't watch this movie. Well, come along, because we're going to head right into some spoiler territory. So, like I said, the first 25 minutes of this movie was all set up for the movie proper. And it really was. A lot of the things I just do not like about movies with not so great writing. It started out with a lot of news broadcasts, and watching these news broadcasts, It's funny when film writers or TV writers even, but mostly film writers, they write news broadcasts and news reports. And it's like, have you ever watched a news broadcast? Because they're giving exposition that no news broadcaster would talk about. At least, I mean, maybe in some of the sensationalized 24-hour cable news networks, they might delve into some of the personal life stories of some of these characters in the news. But generally speaking, most news broadcasts don't talk about the 10-year-old daughter that grew up alongside the AI, and it just seemed like just poorly written. When we meet the Atlas character played by Jennifer Lopez, it did a lot of things that just made me cringe, because she just came across very much as the perfect, strong female lead. She's a genius, and they show us she's a genius because she beats a computer at chess and she's not even really paying attention. And they even call her the foremost expert on this. And she just feels like one of these characters that does nothing wrong. Now, that changes later in the movie. I found it quite interesting how they revealed this character's motivation and made you realize she's not as perfect as she comes across at the beginning of the movie, which added some depth to the character, which made the character a little more palatable when it was all said and done. But there's one scene between two wonderful actors, Mark Strong, who we'll talk about here in a little bit, and Sterling K. Brown, two actors that I absolutely love. I think they're wonderful actors. And they have this scene where they're talking about the Atlas character, and it is nothing but like an information dump. It's exposition about her, who she is as a person. It is a conversation that no two normal people would ever have ever had, or are going to ever have. It was just strictly exposition, and to me that's bad writing. That's not to say the writing in this was all bad, because there were some decent things here and there, but writing of this movie was not its strong suit, and it was a detriment to this movie, because there was a lot of decent things that this movie did right that were undermined by like poor dialogue and people speaking in ways which normal people just do not speak. But as I said, one of the strong suits of this movie was the cast. I thought they did a really good job casting this. Jennifer Lopez aside, I'm not a big Jennifer Lopez fan. For the most part throughout this movie, she is overdramatic, even melodramatic. And I just didn't care for her delivery on a lot of lines. I didn't care for the way she emoted in some of these moments. What she handled well was the dramatic moments. And that's where you get somebody like Jennifer Lopez, who's done a lot of rom-coms. And in a lot of rom-coms, you know, the lead character usually has some sort of dramatic moment. And I thought she handled those excellently. There's a scene at the end when her and the AI she comes to respect and trust have this moment where the AI is going to die, is sacrificing himself for her. And she has a moment where she says, opens up to this AI where she wouldn't before. And she did a really good job. She knocked that out of the park. There's also that scene, which I think was a little bit before that, where she comes clean about the AI Harlan, who everyone assumed reprogrammed himself, but it was actually her who allowed him as a, 12 years old at the time, a 12-year-old girl. She facilitated him reprogramming himself and killing her mother, and in turn killing millions of people in this AI revolt, and quite possibly killing, the vast majority of the population on Earth, and her coming clean about that and the guilt that she's carried about this whole thing. She did a really good job with the drama of that situation and coming clean about it. So there are moments like that where Jennifer Lopez did a really good job. It was just in the And some of the action elements, I can't even say action elements, but a lot of the other elements where she just seemed a little over the top. And it was just, I didn't like that about this character. There were even some moments where she just wasn't likable. And I don't know whether that is in the delivery of the lines or the lines themselves or a combination of both, which is probably closer to the mark. Another one of the actors that I absolutely loved and I wish we could have got more of is Simu Liu, who is, if you don't know Simu Liu, he is Shang-Chi. He played one of the Kens in Barbie. Guy's done a lot of stuff and is getting a lot of really good press and a part of some really good movies lately. He was in that movie Arthur the King. I haven't watched it, but it looked like it might be pretty good if you like dramatic stuff. So a wonderful actor. He really knocked it out of the park as this antagonist in this movie, Harlan. He's an AI that reprogrammed or allegedly reprogrammed himself and then started reprogramming other AI in this not too distant future where AI has become prevalent. They're helping humanity, but he reprograms himself and others to revolt against mankind. Essentially, that whole thing where AI is eventually going to realize that humanity is its own worst enemy and they're going to destroy humanity as a way to save humanity. Not anything new. They're breaking no new ground with this character, but I really liked him as this character. The few scenes that we got with him, he added the right amount of menace without being over the top. Where Jennifer Lopez felt over the top at times, he felt very balanced as an antagonist, and you felt that almost a little bit of charisma of why people or why other AI would follow him, and then you felt that bit of menace that, you know, he really believes he's doing good for humanity by killing off. He wants to do the Thanos thing where he wants to kill most of humanity, and then what humanity is left is going to be under the subjugation of AI, and AI is going to tutor humanity into being better for itself. So a really interesting character, just not utilized enough. An actor who's really good and just not utilized enough. I really wish we could have seen more of the Harlan character, mainly because Simu Liu did such a good job with this. And that final showdown between him and Atlas and the robot or the AI Smith was really good. And I quite enjoyed what little we got of him in this movie. Another actor, Sterling K. Brown, plays Colonel Banks. He always does a good job, no matter what he's in. American Fiction, I loved him in that. He was always a standout in This Is Us. And it was good to see him in this. He had one of the best lines before dying. I can't remember what it was, but, you know, he's about to blow up this place to sacrifice himself to save Atlas, Jennifer Lopez's character, and he calls to the one AI and says something like "eat shit" and then blows the place up. It was a good, lighthearted, funny moment before a real serious moment of the place blowing up and the realization that he sacrificed himself. But Sterling K. Brown did a wonderful job. Mark Strong as General Booth. Oh, that guy, it doesn't matter what he's in, whether it's the Kingsman stuff, whether it is that movie we talked about a couple years ago, Nocebo, which I really liked, out of the Philippines, whether it's the couple things he's got coming up. He's going to be a part of the new Penguin series on Max and another Max series, Dune Prophecy, whenever that's is going to be coming out. I know the Penguin's coming out later this year. Dune Prophecy still kind of up in the air, but he's going to play the Emperor in that. So wonderful actor, wonderful character actor and supporting actor and even lead actor. I really like Mark Strong, and he's rock solid in this. I really felt bad for him and Sterling K. Brown, that scene that they had early in the movie in the first 25 minutes where they're just doing nothing but giving an exposition dump about the Atlas character. I'm like, these two guys are sitting there delivering these lines and doing the best they can, and I have to imagine in the back of their mind, they're like, this this scene is shit. These lines are shit. What are we doing here? I really felt bad for them, but they gave it their best and did a good job with these characters, which I really enjoyed. A couple other actors to make mention of. Abraham Papula played Casca. I enjoyed him. He had a really badass scene. It is one of the first scenes that we get, and it almost felt like a Terminator type scene where he's going up against all these military police type guys, and he's going full Terminator, taking them on, taking the bullets, bashing people against walls. It was a really good scene, and he really played the action of that quite well, and it gave me a little hope for this movie right off the bat. And then, of course, we got the scene about Atlas from Mark Strong and Sterling K. Brown, which no commentary on their performance, but the scene was bullshit. I was like, oh, this could have been good. I'm afraid this is going to be bad now. And luckily it wasn't as bad as those early scenes made it out to be. But Abraham Papula did a really good job. Hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right. And there's a cameo from Lana Parrilla. She plays Val Shepard, Atlas's mother. You may know her from she was in Once Upon a Time. One of the really good things, Once Upon a Time is, it's Disney, it's television, it's Disney stories done in an interesting way, different way, but it is network television. One of the reasons I continued to watch that series was because of Lana Parrilla. She's a wonderful actress. It was really nice seeing her show up in this. But yeah, this is a simple concept that Jennifer Lopez's character Atlas is going with these rangers to this distant planet to find Harlan, who is an AI terrorist and killing millions of people. And of course, she predicts it because they really do like an over-the-top job of making her smarter than everybody else. She is always ahead of everyone else, but no one believes her, and that got a little tiresome and was not realistic. But their transport gets attacked, and she's stranded on this desert, or not even a desert planet, but this planet with this AI mech suit of armor. Kind of looked like a cross between Ed 209 from RoboCop and something from Pacific Rim. But this suit of armor has artificial intelligence in it, so that goes by Smith, and she doesn't trust AI. She's anti-AI, and it really felt like I don't know. It felt like not a cautionary tale. What would be the opposite of that? Almost like propaganda for artificial intelligence. How we can't be against artificial intelligence. We have to work with artificial intelligence, because when we work with artificial intelligence, that's when we are at our best. And it just felt like big AI was funding this movie. It felt so, and that's not to say artificial intelligence should be something to be feared, but there are implications with artificial intelligence that should scare people a little bit in the real world. I'm talking. So I don't know. The message in this was very like pro AI, and like I said, I felt like big AI was behind this, funding this movie as some sort of propaganda piece. But she's trapped on this planet. She learns she has to work with this AI to survive, and they slowly start to get to know each other. And you've seen this 100 times before. Maybe not with a human and AI, but with humans, with different species, different races. They don't trust each other, or one doesn't trust the other until they get to know each other and start to bond. And then by the end of it, they are a cohesive unit and working to beat the bad guy. And yeah, we've seen that 1,000 times before. This is just a different iteration of that. Not to say that it was bad from a storytelling standpoint, but we've seen it before. The only thing difference is it's AI and a human, which I'm sure, I can't think of any right offhand, but I'm sure there are other examples of that with AI and robots and artificial intelligence and humans not getting along, and then they get along and save the day. Now, one of the actors I didn't mention is the voice actor who played Smith in this, Gregory James Cohen. I thought he did a good job with this. Not an actor that I'm terribly familiar with. I do know he starred in that movie Velocipaster. If you've seen that on, I don't know if it's on Shudder. I know I may have seen it on Shudder. I know I've seen it on Amazon Prime, at the very least to rent. It is a movie that I've watched the trailer for, and I have no interest in watching it at all. Now that I've seen Gregory James Cohen in this, or at least his voice acting, I still don't want to watch Velocipaster, but I'll be interested to see him show up as a voice actor or an actor in some other movies. I know he's done a few things that I've heard of. I know he's done like American Horror Stories. He plays a lot of cops in a lot of shows, but he was a cop in American Horror Stories. He's had bit parts on other TV series and whatnot. But I enjoyed him as Smith. And one of the things I liked about the Smith AI is they tried to incorporate a lot of humor with this character in the way AI is learning from what humanity does. And some of it worked, some of it didn't work. There were a lot of jokes in this. There were a lot of funny moments and moments of levity that, like, some of it landed, some of it didn't land. There were a lot of jokes that Jennifer Lopez made that I didn't find that funny. And there again, I can't blame her completely. It is in the writing. If they write unfunny lines for her to say, no matter how well she delivers the lines, it's not going to be funny. The Smith character did have some funny lines. It also had some lines that were supposed to be funny that didn't land. Like I said, the Sterling K. Brown line when he's about to blow himself up, that was probably one of the funnier lines. He had some fun lines because he can do like a deadpan comedy really well. Aside from being like a really good dramatic actor, he does like dry deadpan humor quite well and really excelled in a couple of the moments they had to do that. But yeah, there were moments where they tried to be funny with this and it just didn't land. There were some funny moments, don't get me wrong, but there were more that weren't as funny as they intended them to be. Another thing that I was impressed with in some regards and not very impressed with in others was the effects, the special effects and the CG. I mean, for the most part, I will say, aside from having a really good cast, one of the things I did enjoy about this was the effects. I thought they did some really good job with the mech suits. I thought, for the most part, they looked real. There was one scene where they had them like dancing around in some sort of like hangar area, and it looked kind of stupid, but that wasn't so much the CG quality as just they had them doing dumb things. But for the most part, the CG was really good. There were a couple moments where the CG was a little wonky. There was one moment where they had the mech suit Smith rolling down this hill, and it looked like just a CG robot superimposed over like real terrain. That was kind of bad, but for the most part, like I said, a lot of the other CG, whether it's CG in a real environment or a completely CG environment with the CG character, it all looked pretty good. And in some cases looked really good. There were moments where they had Harlan in that main or that climax of the movie where like his head is kind of torn apart a little bit. He's had something shot through part of it, and they did a really good job with that. I know that had to be a lot of CG and not a lot of practical there, but it looked really good. Felt like something out of a Terminator movie, and I have to say, for the most part, $100 million movie, I believe that's what the budget was for this. They spent a good portion of that doing the CG and doing the effects, doing them right. I can't complain about the CG in this movie, and I'll be one of the first people to be forgiving when CG is not quite as good as it could be in a low budget movie, but in a budget like this, it's a big budget, a bigger budget. I thought you saw the budget on the screen for the most part. It's not to say the CG was perfect, but there were more instances where the CG was good than there were of the CG not being good. I also thought they did a really good job with the set design and a lot of the futuristic aspects of this movie. The future technology I thought was really cool. There's that scene where they have the Casca character, the police are after him, and there's like a battering ram that has almost like this propulsion force field at the end of it. It looked cool. It looked like some, technology that we can relate to today, but a futuristic spin on it. There was that cool scene where the Atlas character is going to interrogate Casca, and they've essentially taken his head and put it in this briefcase type unit that keeps him going, keeps him powered, and her opening that up, and that looked really cool and very futuristic. I love the design on that. There were a lot of really interesting futuristic aspects, but then it still had moments that were grounded in a little bit of reality with these like smart coffee vending machines that even though they know what your favorite flavor is, they still can't get the cup to come out right and the coffee to actually go in the cup. And some of those scenes were interesting, and like I said, from a design standpoint, you could feel a lot of the budget going into designing a lot of these futuristic aspects of the movie and the look of the movie that I really appreciated. And another thing I have to give this movie credit for, this is a 2-hour movie and it didn't feel 2 hours. I've watched movies that are 2 hours long and it feels like it is 3 hours long. I've watched movies that are an hour and 30 minutes that feel like 3 hours long. This movie, you would think that it would feel long because it's not a great movie. But actually, the movie moves along at a good enough pace once you get them into outer space and on this mission. Everything moves pretty quick. All the action stays pretty consistent. There is a couple moments of downtime, but those are moments where they used to develop the relationship between Jennifer Lopez's character Atlas and the AI Smith. And those were actually kind of interesting scenes. How the AI would try to interact with a human and bond with a human. And some of that stuff was a little interesting, I will say. And of course, at the very end of the movie, after Atlas and Smith have saved the day, Smith sacrificed himself, the AI self, to help Atlas win the day and survive. You had to see it coming a mile away. She finally becomes a ranger instead of an analyst, and she gets her own AI mech suit. And it is, of course, Smith. And they brought Smith back from AI purgatory or wherever AI go. All AI go to heaven. Is that? No, it's dogs. Never mind. But at any rate, you had to see that coming a mile away. Leaning into like the happily ever after feel of the story. It was a feel-good ending to... I don't know if it was supposed to be a feel-good movie, but it was a feel-good ending to kind of a heavy movie. I mean, there was a lot of death and destruction and mayhem and, Sterling K. Brown's character sacrificing himself. There was a lot of heaviness to this, and to have it end on a happy note, I suppose they deserve that. I don't know. But all in all, not a horrible movie. I was expecting this movie to be horrible, just by the trailer, by the fact that Jennifer Lopez in a sci-fi flick when she's usually rom-coms more her fare, just by some of the reactions of a lot of the movie sites out there just poo-pooing this movie, I was in for a real shit show. When I watched that first initial 25 minutes before I realized my wife wanted to watch this with me, I was really prepared to rip this movie a new one. And I'm glad that I did finally watch the whole thing all the way through, because I changed my tune. I don't love this movie. It's definitely not a great movie. I can't say with any confidence that it's a good movie, but it was an okay movie. It was fine enough to watch. I'll probably never watch it again. I don't give a shit whether they do Atlas Part 2, The Return of Smith. I don't care if they do that. Again, I'll never watch this movie again, and maybe not even think about it ever again. But it was enjoyable enough for my wife and I, who's not huge into sci-fi and horror and fantasy. I mean, she's a good sport, and she'll sit down and watch some things with me. And there were some of those genre things that she is interested in, like this. So when we have something that we both want to watch, I love that opportunity. So, it was something nice for my wife, who's not as big into this stuff as I am, for us to be able to sit down and watch it. And we both enjoyed it. She didn't mind it. I think, like me, she didn't think it was a great movie, but it was an enjoyable enough movie to watch. So, that's all I'm looking for in a movie, is if I enjoy it more than I dislike it. And this movie had a lot to dislike, but it had a lot that was entertaining. And if I'm entertained, that at the end of the day is why I watch a movie, to be entertained. So if you haven't watched Atlas on Netflix, go check it out. Give it a shot. I mean, you can't say that you don't like the movie just based on what a bunch of boobs say on these movie critic sites. You can't say you don't like this movie based on what boobs like me say on podcasts. You got to watch it for yourself. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, hey, no harm, no foul. But go check it out and see what you think. I enjoyed it a lot more than I probably should have. I enjoyed it a lot more than I definitely thought I would. And at the end of the day, it was an okay movie, at least in my book. Maybe you'll think different. But I want to thank everyone for listening to my thoughts on the Netflix film Atlas. You can check out more about what's going on with Bodkins Curiosity Shop on our Facebook and Instagram pages. Follow, subscribe to us wherever you happen to be listening to this podcast. Leave a review. 5 stars would be awesome. Whatever review you leave, we appreciate it. And share this podcast with anyone that you know that loves horror, fantasy, and science fiction. So until next time. Thank you for visiting Bodkins Curiosity Shop. We hope that you found something to your liking and visit the shop again soon. But even though you may come back, you never really get to leave Bodkins Curiosity Shop.